Bottom line, from my perspective, I would say the president has no vision for this country. That is the bottom line. And you know, when you have a vision, even if it is a bad vision, it's better than no vision at all. All the leaders we have had.
Part of our failure is also part of leadership failure.
Leadership failure. All the leaders we have had, they've all been selfish. They start good when in office, but once in office, instead of focusing on delivering, what do? They start trying to consolidate power.
Their stem.
As a result, they begin to pay more attention on their stay as opposed to meeting their needs, the promises they made to the people. Well, there's somebody who called me. He's, I think, much older than me, could be in his 70s. He's been a follower of Zambian politics. And he said, you know what? I'm very upset with myself. I said, but why? I said, I got duped. Duped by the who? I said, but this man in State House. And I said, you know, I'm so upset with myself because I didn't think that at my age I would be lied to. Because this is not the man we voted for.
Oh, that's a serious indictment.
And I said, my brother, if it's any consolation, you're not the only one. We are many. You see, the expectations are very high. Because personally, I never thought there would be things would get worse than they were under PF. Because PF was in decline. And success, a person in the position of President Hichilema would be just arresting the decline is already a success. You know, it's like you have a truck without brakes, sliding, right? So you are successful in just stopping that truck.
Before you attend to the brakes.
Before you even, your primary objective is simply to arrest it, not to end up in a river or in a ditch. You've already succeeded. That is all what was expected. The point is this, Ambassador. Your judiciary, you can sacrifice all institutions, but never sacrifice your judiciary. You elect a president every 5 years. You can choose to throw him out. You elect your MPs every 5 years. You can choose to throw them out. But your judges
are literally there for life.
They are there for life.
At least pensionable life.
At least they'll go that the earliest you can leave is 65, the last period. On the election day, you know, you see, and that's the beauty of democracy. Allow people to talk. When they keep quiet, you should be worried because you don't know what they are thinking. Because they'll just come and thump you on election day. And that is the same mood that I see right now, where people have stopped talking. They're just waiting for 2026. I was very optimistic about the outcome of the election, in the sense that, like I've said, when everything is okay in the country, normally the voter turnout tends to be slow, to be very low. But in this case, the voter turnout, the number of new voters, if you recall, there was already this mistrust by some NGOs to say, no, the decision to cancel the earlier register and re-register voters was meant to eliminate some people from voting. But what it turned out was that even more voters went on the
New ballot,
New-
new register.
new registered voters. So when I think the numbers must have jumped, we may have had about 6 million or so.
About 7.
7 million, I think maybe 5. There was an increase of about 2 million new voters. And that was already a very bad sign for the incumbent. Perhaps there is something that I need to mention about the fact that, democracies are not easy. And democracies need to be fought for, need to be protected. And what amazes me sometimes is the naivety of us Zambians to think that we can have democracy and it can thrive without a price. There's a price to democracy. There's even a possibility of people losing their lives in defense of democracy. I haven't shared this. I've already painted a very positive picture as to everything was okay throughout my struggle. But there was one particular incident when I decided, after I embarked on to fight Bill 10, and these are invariably lonely battles. You can't get people on board. You have to make a decision yourself, purely born out of your own conviction, and if people will join you, well and good. And then also, when I decided, for me the most challenging case was when I decided to challenge the eligibility of President Lungu. And it was that time that, yeah, I'm only human. At the end of the day, I was I had a bit of concerns. I have to tell you, up to that point, I had not prepared my will. Yes.
Did you feel that the battle was so onerous, so risky that you faced death?
Yes, because, but you see, the point is this: when you embark on a fight like the one I was on, you have to prepare for the worst. If it doesn't come, well and good, but if it comes, you're ready for it. We, as Zambians, were normally suspicious about preparing wills.
Yeah.
We always think that when you prepare a will, you are dying tomorrow. So that time I said, no, let me put my affairs in order. I settled my will. Every man has his weakness, and we all have two weaknesses. Our wives and our children. If you're involved in a struggle, they touch your wife. If you recall, the day when Regina Chilo was arrested, that was the day I think that was the day when Monawasa managed to break President Chilo.
Yes, I remember that day.
Yes, because
very clearly. He had been strong.
yes.
Every time we went to police stations, relatives were weeping. The day he was arrested, people were cursing, but he would encourage all of us.
That's right.
But the day they arrested his wife,
That's right.
I saw a broken man.
Yes. And his point was, what kind of a man am I if I can't even protect my wife? So if you want to see a man's weakness, touch his family.
Watch the entire video, my lovely viewers, from start to finish, to get the whole thing. Without wasting much of your time, let's get right into it.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Hi lovely viewers, it's me again, your one and only Mutati Mpundu. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time on my channel, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button down below. Turn the bell icon to join the notification squad. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this video in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you, lovely viewers.
The fight against one party.
I saw the struggles you went through when you were under pressure, when you were defending Dr. Chiluba. I think the next kind of massive pressure against you was during this period.
Yes.
You were objecting to Bill 10 and others.
Yes.
Even your practice, was threatened. How do you cope? Because people would fear for your lives, would fear for the life of your family. How do you cope?
Faith, Ambassador. I sleep comfortably.
Yeah.
When you're doing God's work, and also remember, one of the things, I'll tell you, one of the most overwhelming experiences I've ever had in my entire career was the day I argued the case, Lungu's eligibility.
Mm.
And I felt like, what? My life on earth, it's like where you could say,
I've done my part.
I've done my part. So the issue for me was not about winning that case, but was arguing that case. And I came to understand, I think in a strange way, why I was born, why my life took the turns it did, why I ended up being a lawyer, why I ended up focusing in constitutional law and administrative law. And I think all the pieces came together when I argued the Lungu's eligibility case. Bill 10 was just one, but Lungu's eligibility case was like, I felt like I'd done my assignment. If I was to die at that time, I was going to die a very happy man. It's like I've done my race and I have done all what I was meant to do here on earth. It was now up to other people to do that.
In fact, that's what elicits my second question. You walked the country in that case.
Yes.
And the judiciary said President Lungu was eligible.
Yes.
So then people hear you in 2022. You are saying, actually, Lungu is eligible to stand.
Yes.
And he should be allowed to stand.
Yes.
So people see a contradiction. Just explain that.
There is no contradiction. I went to court, right? Now, if you look at the outcome, who is the loser in that eligibility case? The loser is the judiciary. Because people did not believe in the judiciary. They said, oh, you think he's eligible? We will decide who is truly eligible. Okay? But that is how a democratic system works. You don't only have to accept results in your favor. No. We have institutions, which is the court. My job when I go to court is to present my case to the best of my ability. And I'm also hoping that the judges will also do their jobs to the best of their abilities. Now, in this case, they fumbled. They construed the Constitution in a manner to accommodate President Lungu, which they shouldn't have. But that is the law. We respect that. We have to learn to accept the outcome of the court's decision, whether we like it or not, because the power to decide what the law is vested in the courts, not in me. So there are two sides to that eligibility debate. There was one side that said Lungu qualifies, and there's the other side which said Lungu doesn't qualify. At the end of the day, we went before the court, and the court decided to say, I was wrong. The other side was right. Lungu is eligible. That is how it stood.
The funny part is now the same Constitutional Court is being asked to review their earlier position.
Yes.
What are your feelings around that?
Well, the very fact that they've allowed the case to go on is an act of lawlessness. The right course of action should have been, we have already decided on this issue. We will live with this decision. Good or bad is our decision. This matter is closed. Because there's a concept that we say, res judicata, matters have been decided. Because there has to be an end to litigation. Litigation can't be... You close, you live with it.
And their judgment became law.
It's law. Now, the only time you can reopen a case is if there is new material, new evidence, and so forth. Okay? I would be very surprised if I thought the court was to say now is not eligible. If he was eligible in 2021, 2 years ago, how can he not be eligible now? Because what has transpired? And how can the only way that will be possible is for the court to say, we were wrong. Now, how can they do that? How are you wrong? You are wrong because presidents have changed or what? Justice should never take the color of who is in State House. What is lawful under President Lungu should also be lawful under President HH. So it doesn't matter. That is why, people sometimes, you see, when you go to court, you find there is that statute of Lady Justice.
Yes.
It's covered.
Yes. She's blind.
She's blind.
Why is she blind?
It is symbol. Justice is blind. It doesn't care who you are. You are rich, powerful, want. It doesn't matter. It looks at you equally. There's no justice for the rich. There's no justice for the poor. We are all equal before the law. That is the implication of that. But if, let's say, the judiciary does that, then it will have killed itself. It's already in a coma. Okay, and then now it's like, if whichever way they decide, I think we just pull out the plug from...
it's on life support.
Life support, we just pull out the plug now and just get rid of it. That is what the implication would be. So that is where I come from, Ambassador. I have always avoided, even throughout the reign of President Sata. I think when Sata was in office, we only saw him once or twice, 2 or 3 times, and that was at his instigation. He called us, we went in, talked about 1 or 2 things, then thereafter, obviously towards the end, he was sick, and we couldn't, but we never entered to his government.
We will conclude with your assessment of President Hakainde Hichilema. He comes at a novel time, 2021. Democracy is deemed to be threatened. He comes on a popular vote. There's popular participation across the country. And he is presented as a Democrat that will resolve our various crises that we have. And you were among the earliest critics of his rule and his governance. Let's take that journey.
Yes. When you have privilege as I am, to have the experiences that I've had, and having interacted with former presidents, and having studied the history, you can see the telltale signs. And it's always good to warn the people, because of what I know, it would be wrong to keep quiet. I'll tell you, one of the first things that I think people often ignore is that I don't think at all one of the biggest mistakes President HH has made, I don't think at all he understands the implication of the election of 2021. In some misguided way, he thinks it's a reflection of his popularity. No. I would put it bluntly. In that election, Zambian people used him to get rid of Lungu. That's the way it has to be seen.
It's not because he's an economist. It's not because he can fix it.
No.
It's not because he's fluent or he speaks better.
No. That's my reading. It's a situation whereby the election was a revolt against President Lungu. Don't forget, there are 2 things here. There is PF and there is Lungu. It was not a rejection of PF, it was a rejection of Lungu. Okay, because people just did not like his style of governance, and they did not want to give him another 5 years. People, citizens, are smarter than, they are very smart. They politicians always underestimate the voters. The election result, when I look at it, it's like, remember I said, it's individual people voting in secret.
Yeah.
But the outcome, this is the way I perceive it, it's like manufactured by some supernatural force. Okay? Let me explain by that. People drew experience from the 2016 election, whereby President Lungu won by a razor-thin number, which was 0.3%. 0.3 was simply 13,000 votes. Now, when you are talking about 0.3, 0.2, 0.6, 0.3 in other jurisdictions would go for automatic rerun because that is within the margin of error. But when you want to remove a president, you don't want to remove him with such kind of margin. It has to be overwhelming, and people knew that. I already knew that PF was going to lose when there was a decision to re-register the voters.
Why?
Ambassador, I went to the centers to register.
As a voter.
As a voter. 3 separate nights, I couldn't. The number of people that I saw were overwhelming. On one of those days, I went at midnight and still found a queue.
You knew this is a change vote. It's not a vote for the incumbent.
No. When people are happy with the incumbent, they don't bother to vote globally. Like they'll tell you, if things are okay, why do you want to change them?
Don't fix it, yeah.
So I knew Lungu was on his way out. So even so it was a combination of factors. The problem is that I think politicians live in a bubble. And if Lungu had seen that, he would have possibly toned down and it would have been moderated. I have no doubt in my mind, if PF had removed President Lungu, put in somebody there, PF would still be in power today. That vote was a revolt against President Lungu. So I already knew from the voter turnout that Lungu is gone. On the election day, you see, and that's the beauty of democracy. Allow people to talk. When they keep quiet, you should be worried because you don't know what they are thinking. Because they'll just come and thump you on election day. And that is the same mood that I see right now, where people have stopped talking. They're just waiting for 2026. I was very optimistic about the outcome of the election, in the sense that, like I've said, when everything is okay in the country, normally the voter turnout tends to be to be very low. But in this case, the voter turnout, the number of new voters, if you recall, there was already this mistrust by some NGOs to say, no, the decision to cancel the earlier register and re-register voters was meant to eliminate some people from voting. But what it turned out was that even more voters went on the
New ballot, new register.
New registered voters. So when I think the numbers must have jumped, we may have had about 6 million or so.
About 7.
7 million. I think maybe 5. There was an increase of about 2 million new voters. And that was already a very bad sign for the incumbent. Perhaps there is something that I need to mention about the fact that, democracies are not easy, and democracies need to be fought for, need to be protected, And what amazes me sometimes is the naivety of us Zambians to think that we can have democracy and it can thrive without a price. There's a price to democracy. There's even a possibility of people losing their lives in defense of democracy. I haven't shared this. I've already painted a very positive picture, so everything was okay throughout my struggle. But there was one particular incident when I decided, after I embarked on to fight Bill 10, and these are invariably lonely battles. You can't get people on board. You have to make a decision yourself, purely born out of your own conviction, and if people will join you, well and good. And then also, when I decided, for me the most challenging case was when I decided to challenge the eligibility of President Lungu. And it was that time that, yeah, I'm only human. At the end of the day, I was I had a bit of concerns. I have to tell you, up to that point, I had not prepared my will. Yes.
Did you feel that the battle was so onerous, so risky that you faced death?
Yes, because, but you see, the point is this: when you embark on a fight like the one I was on, you have to prepare for the worst. If it doesn't come, well and good, but if it comes, you're ready for it. We, as Zambians, were normally suspicious about preparing wills.
Yeah.
We always think that when you prepare a will, you are dying tomorrow. So that time I said, no, let me put my affairs in order. I settled my will. You know, every man has his weakness, and we all have two weaknesses. Our wives and our children. If you're involved in a struggle, they touch your wife. If you recall, the day when Regina Chilo was arrested, that was the day I saw, I think that was the day when Monawasa managed to break President
Chilo. Yes, I remember that day.
Yes, because...
Very clearly. He had been strong.
Yes.
Every time we went to police stations, relatives were weeping. The day he was arrested, people were cursing, but he would encourage all of us.
That's right.
But the day they arrested his wife,
That's right.
I saw a broken man.
Yes. And his point was, what kind of a man am I if I can't even protect my wife? So if you want to see a man's weakness, touch his family. And that was the thing that I was in that situation. But fortunately for me, my first marriage had ended. And I only had my current second wife, but at that time we're not yet married, and my kids. And I remember having a chat with my firstborn son. He said, son, there is this possibility.
Wow.
In all my struggles, that was the only time I shed tears. I could have walked away, but we need to rise to the level where we love this country enough to die for. I spoke to my firstborn son and I said to him, son, there is this possibility. Anything can happen. And if it happens, I have 3 boys. And I said, you may have to step forward and take care of your siblings. And our children, they are not as hard as we are. And I think the poor boy didn't take it.
Wow.
he didn't take it very well. And it's like you are saying goodbyes. And I said, no, it's not that. It may not happen. If it doesn't happen, well and good. The second point was I approached my current wife. She's Italian. And I said, this is not your country. But she was born here, grew up here, and she hasn't known any other country other than Zambia. And I said, this is a country, this is a struggle for my country. I've signed up for this, but you didn't. So I think if I'll understand if you decide to walk away. And she said, no, I'm not going anywhere. And I said, well, I didn't want to assume that you are staying because what I'm embarking on is a very, I'm on a rough road. Anything can happen. So she said, no, I'm staying. I think if there was a moment where I wavered in my conviction, it was that moment. And to realize that, yes, because those are the two major weaknesses, your children and your wife.
And your wife.
Yeah. I had that sealed off. I had my will in place. I was now ready. That's how I did those cases with a clear conscience. Although I had my faith, but again, you still prepare. Sometimes people misunderstand faith.
So, State Council, the stakes were that high. The threats were that intense.
Yes. Yes. Because anything can happen. Because you see, you are dealing with a system that was Lungu's. Maybe its level of brutality may have been exaggerated, but you have to prepare. Because remember, when you want to change a system, they're vested interest. Whereas you're fighting democracy, to them, democracy threatens.
You're taking away their jobs.
Or their jobs, their interests.
Their opportunities.
Yes, or their opportunities. And one of the things I realized was that sometimes these things are done without even the president knowing. And I also prepared myself for anything. I mean, I had seen a former president, Kenneth Kaunda, being saged for 8 hours, accused of having stolen books from State House. This was a man we used to sing, Kumulule Sapanshi Kaunda. He was reduced to that level. I saw the first president accused of having, the story in MMD was that Kaunda was a very wealthy man.
And he had stolen $4 billion.
Yes, he had properties in Romania, hotels all over the world, and we believed it. But later on we learned that he was just a poor man who didn't even have a single property in his name. And to this day, we've only come to learn about that, but the damage was already done. And I saw a former president declared stateless after being in power. Later on, I saw a former president dragged to court for 7 years, accused of money he never stole. Who am I? If they wanted to eliminate, they could easily have eliminated. I was not naive about the brutality of government and what they can do, what they can manufacture. So I prepared myself. That was the background I had. If Kaunda can be brought down, Chiluba can be brought down, I was nothing. For me, they can just smash like a fly. But I had to prepare. But it turned out things worked out. I've said a lot of things about President Lungu, and then you get a picture.
There are good parts about him.
Of course,
before
there is. Yes.
we go to President.
There is. There is nobody who is completely bad. There are some good things that was done under him, and I give him credit for the constitution that we have currently as amended. We could have completed that exercise by having the Bill of Rights, but UPND campaigned very strongly against the referendum, largely because they didn't just, it was more out of ignorance than anything else. But that is, they convinced the people not to vote for the bill. That's democracy. You work with numbers. For me, if I was to give President Lungu credit, it is in that respect. There is also something else that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
If somebody was really honest, if, let's say, we are to talk about Lusaka, I think the greatest development in terms of buildings, opening up new areas in Lusaka, they have happened during the 10 years of PF. You see, you know you can now get lost in Lusaka.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay. Before that, you couldn't get lost in Lusaka. You know, I could actually drive in Lusaka with my eyes closed. I knew where the road where it led and everything else. But in the last 10 years, we have seen massive transformation of Lusaka. And that was all been under PF. And all what they had to do was just put a road and ZESCO, and then people just came and built. So we have had new areas transformed. And I think that is something worthwhile to acknowledge, rather than just saying that all these people are just busy stealing and everything else. But of course, the biggest problem is the cost of those projects. They were necessary projects, but invariably we differed over, there were questionable expenses to do with that. So I think, in my view, I think those are the two areas that I would, but I think the most outstanding one would be the Constitution, because I think for me that was a selfless act when you put in place a Constitution that works against you.
Should it be amended?
Ambassador, the Constitution should not be amended for two reasons. First, no Constitution is ever perfect. It's ever perfect. None. There's no Constitution in the world that is perfect. So Constitution has its own challenges. And that is why you have a special court, the Constitutional Court, to iron out all the imperfections through the process of interpretation. Now, if you decide to amend, it has to be a product of consultation. I have heard this crazy idea by this government where they're saying, we want to amend the non-contentious clauses. Now, it is crazy. It is completely irresponsible. You don't do that with the Constitution. Now, first of all, when you say non-contentious according to who? What is your reference point? If you ask me, I have my own clauses that I may not like, but that's not the basis of the Constitution. Once the Constitution is in place, whether you like it, you don't like it, it is binding. There's a second reason why this government does not have legitimate grounds to amend the Constitution. The same reasons we advanced against Bill 10, those reasons
remained valid.
They've remained valid for any subsequent amendment. The reason is the Constitution as we have it is a product of a bipartisan it is a bipartisan product. If you recall, in 2016, PF did not have the 2/3 majority to amend the Constitution on its own. So for the amendment to go through, it needed the support of UPND. So both PF and MMD and UPND birthed the Constitution as it is.
So rare times in our country when you have that kind of consensus.
We've never had that. 1996 was a lone job that was done by Chiluba.
Using the bully of numbers.
Yes, 1991, that was again a Kaunda product where Kaunda was forced to compromise. 1991, Chiluba had more than 2/3. 1996, Chiluba had more than 2/3 of the of the seats in the National Assembly. It didn't need the concurrence of UNIP at that time, because UNIP was insignificant by that time. But 2016, we already had, or we had behind us nearly 20 years of experience with the Constitution as amended in 1996. 20 years is a long period, enough for you to be able to review and see the imperfections in the Constitution and try and change them. But this Constitution is not even 10 years old as amended. It is a bipartisan product. Now, there is no reason to change it, because there is no clause in that Constitution which did not have the support of UPND. Clauses that UPND did not agree with were not included. For example, there was a provision where they agreed that the president should be able to appoint ministers from outside parliament.
It
was rejected by both PF and UPND. So it is a bipartisan product. And that is why I'm opposed to that. There is no reason. And not only that, the Constitution has proven itself. You know, it is actually largely responsible for PF remaining intact as an opposition party.
How come?
Very simple. Before 2016, I think you remember this, when President Mwanawasa was basically a minority president, what did he do? He started sponsoring defections, poaching UPND members. I think if you remember, the first casualty was Dr. Sipula Kabanje, who was, I think, UPND. He resigned from UPND, and he was sponsored. He crossed over to MMD and sponsored, and he won. So there was a lot of crossing where you can now resign your position as a UPND, as an MP, and then you go and stand on the opposition, on the other party's ticket. Now, there is no incentive for you to do that. You cause that kind of by-election, it means you will not participate. So that is why PF has remained intact. And that is how they ended up stealing those 2 seats of Kwacha and Kabushi. You know, I mean, for me, that was pure theft, where you simply say, I have the power and I'm taking this. So this Constitution has proven itself. It has also largely been responsible for ensuring that President Edgar Lungu continues to enjoy his immunity. Because right now, even if you presented a motion to lift his immunity, you don't have the numbers, unless some members of PF decide to cross over. But that is not guaranteed. But also, there are many other provisions in the Constitution, for example, which have not been actuated, they have not been activated. So it is premature to know that it is performing or not performing, because it's not yet complete. Okay? For example, last week we were talking about the issue of the way the local government system is run. People do not even understand that we have a 3-tier system where you have your central government, provincial government, and local government. People still don't know that, and even those in government, they don't even understand it. They have not given it life. So we need to fully implement it, see how it's going to work. You know, it's like you have a car which has some parts missing. There is no way you can determine that the performance of this car is okay, it's not okay. No, it's only when it is completely put together.
You put it on the road.
You put it on the road. Then you see the performance to say, okay, we need to change it, we need to change it. That Constitution is not yet complete because we have not activated some of the provisions. So those are some of the reasons why I would oppose. Because, for example, if somebody wants to change, what would be the reason? You have to make a case. What is your reason? Or you can't just say, well, there is lacuna. I mean, there's this word even which people use, lacunas. First of all, there is nothing like lacunas. You know, that's not, the word doesn't exist. There are no blank. When you say lacuna, it's a blank. It's like saying there are blanks in the Bible. We take the Bible as it is.
Yeah.
We don't take it as it should be. You also take the Constitution as it is. You know, because the moment you allow a person to start questioning the Constitution, where are you going to end up? You know, so there is absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
We have to see it happen. And then there is also something else that people don't understand. The Constitution is as good as the people. If there have been imperfections, there have been imperfections that have come about because we have put wrong people in these constitutional offices. Okay? So you can have the best constitution, but a best written document. But if you give it to the wrong people to run with it, it will not perform as expected. You know, we have already had this struggle, for example, to do with the Constitutional Court. There are problems with that court, and there continue to be problems with that court. I'll give you an example, for instance. I may not get my numbers right, but I'll try. I think President Lungu appointed 9 judges. 2 of those judges, I think maybe is it 9 or 8, but I don't know the number. But 2 of those judges have died. I think that reduced the number to about, I think, 5 or 6 or so. Now, what does President Chichilema do? He comes into office. What does he do? He appoints his own, I think, 4 or 5 new judges. He doesn't pause for a moment to say, okay, why am I doing this? The caseload of that court did not justify the appointment of extra judges. Because that
Beyond
court,
7, what was the total number? Is it 7 or 9?
I think there must have remained maybe 6 or 7 judges. But the point is this: we cannot justify the appointment of the additional 5 judges because there is no work. Okay? Because in a year, unless maybe in an election year, on average in a year, that we have not more than 50 cases filed.
So the bulk of the current caseload really lies on the weight of either magistrates or high court judges.
It's mostly high court judges. Like we are talking about the figures. Last year, for instance, we filed something like 2,300 cases divided amongst 12 judges.
Wow.
These are things we don't talk about.
Even if they are superhuman.
Even if they are there is no way they can perform. So we are lying to people that we are delivering justice. There's no justice being delivered because the caseload is just unmanageable. That is for this year, for last year. Now we have started another year. We're going to have another. So at the end of the day, the system will collapse. Now, these judges are poorly paid. You're talking about a judge taking home something like $1,000, even if you're paying them $2,000. But that same judge also wants to take his children to a private school.
It's called a judge.
Yes.
Society has so many expectations.
Exactly. So what do you expect? You know, so the system is broken. So in this case of the Constitutional Court, you have judges who are doing less work, being paid more money. Then you have judges doing more work and receiving less money. That is just a dysfunction which needs to be addressed. But at the end of the day, when there is failure to deliver delays in cases, a failure to deliver justice, it is not a failure of the Constitution. It is the failure of human beings. And in addition to that, judges are not adequately funded. The funding is a struggle. I haven't seen the current budget allocation, but I think last year we were talking about, I don't know whether it's less than 1% or 2%. That is what
very minimal.
Very minimal. You can't. You see, if you value, at the end of the day, I think what we need to do is to have a conversation. Yes, we know that we are stressed financially, but there are certain key institutions that should be given priority. And one of those institutions I'd advocate for is the judiciary. You can start funding to other organs, but I think we need to give priority to the judiciary.
Sure.
Yes, because once that collapses, I'm always a firm believer that, you know what, it's okay to have a corrupt president. A country can survive with a corrupt president, corrupt MPs. But once your judges are also corrupt, you're finished as a country. So
the state collapses.
yes, yeah. So coming to, that is what I would say. It wasn't a complete disaster, obviously, as like they say, even a broken clock gets it right once or twice
A day.
Yeah, so, yeah.
This now brings me to your review on President Hakainde Hichilema. He's won. It's even a personal triumph to you, because this journey, as you've demonstrated, the personal risks you took, and many Zambians benefited in President Hakainde Hichilema. He's been in office for 2.5 years. Give me a review.
Well, there's somebody who called me. He's, I think, much older than me. Could be in his 70s. He's been a follower of Zambian politics. And he said, you know what? I'm very upset with myself. I said, but why? I said, I got duped. Duped by the who? I said, but this man in State House. And I said, you know, I'm so upset with myself because I didn't think that at my age I would be lied to. Because this is not the man we voted for.
It's a serious indictment.
And I said, my brother, if it's any consolation, you're not the only one. We are many. You see, the expectations are very high. Because personally, I never thought there would be things would get worse than they were under PF. Because PF was in decline. And success, a person in the position of President Hichilema would be just arresting the decline is already a success. You know, it's like you have a truck without brakes, sliding, right? So you are successful in just stopping that truck.
Before you attend to the brakes.
Before you even, your primary objective is simply to arrest it, not to end up in a river or in a ditch. You've already succeeded. That is all what was expected. But we arrested the momentum. But what has happened? It's like that was just a temporary situation. And the truck is let loose. This is just my personal view, which is that I did not expect, if we are to evaluate the two presidents, Lungu and Hichilema, I would forgive Lungu for his shortcomings, but I wouldn't forgive Hichilema for his shortcomings. The reason is, Lungu was an accident. Lungu never planned to be president. Death occurred, and he found himself in a certain place. I think if you remember, Lungu was described as umupiani.
True.
Okay? He was in the right place at the right time. He never aspired. I knew Lungu when we were together, of course. I don't think other people would say Lungu had presidential ambitions before that time. But Hichilema is different. He's been crying for this office for 15 years. Now, having fought for it, the expectation is that given a chance, you know what to do. But I've said to somebody close to him, and I said, you know, failure for President Hichilema is a choice. President Hichilema has chosen to fail. Let me explain what I mean by that. This country's next year will be 60 years. So, Hichilema and the rest of us lived under 27 years under Kaunda. By the time Kaunda was being removed, we were mature enough. We understood the dynamics, what was happening. This system was one extreme system. It was a one-party state where government controlled everything. You know, I remember those of us who grew up on the copper belt, the miners, they used to get an allowance called Indalama Shamusana.
Yeah.
If you remember, I don't know whether you understand what it means.
Yes, they were encouraging more population.
That's right. So for every child, if you're working for ZCCM, they gave you an allowance. So literally, government even entered your bedroom, you know, and you produce, first of all, when I tell this to people, they can't believe it. ZCCM used to give nappies to newly born babies. You went to a minor hospital. In fact, as parents, you didn't even need to buy anything. I think even baby milk was given. And then after you finish, your child reaches level to go to nursery. You went to nursery done by ZCCM, went to school by ZCCM. Everything was literally provided. But that system was clearly unsustainable. It worked up to a certain point. Its failure was the inability to reform, to adapt to the. It was good up. It was justifiable up to a certain from the beginning, but when it grew, it failed to adapt and it collapsed. Then we chucked out that system and brought in another system in '91, which we are now calling a free market, liberal democracy, and so forth. I think if you remember, that was a slogan by President Chiluba. Government has no business in business.
True.
So which meant privatize. So what happened? This was now another extreme. One situation whereby government controlled all the businesses and the other extreme government had absolutely nothing to do with business. But both systems failed. One party state saddled us with a debt of $7 billion. That free market system, liberal democracy, over 30 years, shared between, which comprised 20 years of MMD, 10 years of PF, that system also collapsed. By 2021, we ended up with a debt of $15 billion. If you look at per capita, debt per capita, it's exactly the same. We ended up at the same position. We're in the same position we were in 1991. So, I have said, with these two experiences, Hichilema's the experiences from both systems. In my view, work was very easy, is to be able to collect what worked in 30 years here, what worked here, package it. Because the country has never taken a center position. What needed for the country was to try the center, which has never been tried before, where you have a combination of what worked there and what worked this side, and then package something. He has not done that. And I think I was saying that the situations are similar, but there is one radical difference. Hichilema is not Chiluba. There's a radical difference. And one of the things stands out is that between the two men, I think Chiluba understood government, whereas Chiluba, HH doesn't understand government and how government works. Chiluba understood government, and Chiluba understood
the people.
He understood the people. He understood the government. He understood the challenges. And I think he was more truthful and more honest to the people. And that is why throughout he was able to carry out these brutal reforms, and nobody ever rioted. The reason was he was truthful from the beginning. He never fabricated reality. He never manufactured reality. He told the people openly, things are bad. Are you ready to make sacrifices? And people said, yes, we are ready. And he put it as it was. In fact, Chiluba, I would say, under-promised and over-delivered. Now what we have is a situation where you over-promise and delivery is zero.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Alright, that's all for you today, lovely viewers. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about the video you just watched in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you, lovely viewers. Once again, I go by the name of Mutati Mpundu. I love you, peace, I gotta go.